Oh,
Hello and welcome to another episode of Everyday Somatics. Of course, I'm here, Stefanie with Shandell, and we are talking about how do we infuse somatics into everyday life. So we've had a few episodes that we've recorded. We talked about allowing our bodies to feel the relation piece relating to the body versus jumping to fixing and removing and all of that stuff. And then we also had a conversation where the mind tells us stories. And so we talked through about how do we get out of the stories. And we were both talking before we hit record about what we wanted to share. And it's like kind of bringing those two pieces together. And how do we how do we physically infuse somatics into our everyday lives? By not going to our head, by, like all of that. So how do we, how does this physically look in an everyday life?
yeah. Yeah. And, we were talking about how we just so quickly will start to think we know how we should be feeling instead of taking that pause to come into the body. And it can literally be over really big things or over the smallest simple, what should I be eating for lunch? Which
Yeah.
seems so simple. Right. So I would love to be able to talk about how we take those pauses throughout the day to somatically check in. But not only that, we do have moments in our day that we are activated by something outside of us. And then what are we doing with that?
Mhm.
Instead of just immediately going to fix or immediately telling a story about it, how are we actually bringing the somatics piece into our everyday?
I like that. And before recording, we were talking about this idea, your mind, like when you're introduced to somatics. I know when I was introduced to somatics, it was this idea of, okay, I've got to get into my body. But in order to get into my body, I have to think about getting into my body, right? I have to think about, okay, well, what is my body feeling? We'll do a scan, we'll do all those things, which is absolutely necessary when you're new to this practice. And our whole intention of this channel is to just bring these conversations of especially if you're new to the somatic piece or you're wanting to integrate it more, it does take practice.
Yeah.
This is a big piece of practicing it, of engaging in the pauses. But I guess I wanted to bring in permission that if the mind is like, okay, they're talking about somatics, I've got to feel it, I've got to get in it. That is great. And that's fabulous. Long term, the intention is notice those activations, notice, oh, this person just said something to me, and holy cow, my chest feels really, really tight right now. My
Yeah.
chest feels really tight. Instead of okay, whoa, I'm gonna just respond, react, whatever that looks like. We want to lead into that part where it is becomes an everyday practice for you. But
Yeah.
we got to start somewhere, right?
Right. Yeah, and it does. The more you practice it, the more you are intentional with, because I call it the pause. It's as soon as you start thinking, I'm like, wait a second,
Mhm.
where am I feeling this in my body? So it's I can recognize when my mind starts going, or I takes me an hour or two or the next day to recognize that I've been thinking and ruminating and
Mhm.
stressing about this thing. And I'm like, oh, and it's always in that pause that I'm like, wait, where am I feeling this in the body? To the point where you will have certain situations that you're like, oh, that just hit me right in the stomach. And so your mind doesn't even think about it because your body is getting used to the fact that you're actually starting to listen,
Yeah.
right? That it will be like, she's listening, he's listening, they're listening, and it will start speaking in a way that you will immediately bypass the mind and get straight to the body.
Yeah. So let's walk through a typical day or a day, right? Because every day is different. Every day you you could have something different on your calendar, right? You're engaging with different people. You're driving down the street and activated by a smell or somebody driving erratically or whatever that looks like. But how do you start your day? And I guess maybe just think we could both just kind of talk about what our day looked like today, and how did we start and where were the moments of those pauses where we got to actually feel what was going on in the body?
Yeah. Um, I've lately I've been giving myself permission to sleep in. right? Because I was typically wake up at 5:30 and immediately sit down and do my meditation and then get on with my day. And there's something that within this process of somatics, my body has needed more rest because it's been in recovery for a long time. And so instead of me fighting that and like being upset with myself, I'm like, it's okay for me to maybe lay and do a meditation. It's okay for me to lay here for a moment. And, I've been having some my SI joint has been really tight. So I've been laying in my bed and checking in to see how my back is feeling. Like, how tight are you this morning? And then doing some exercises before I get out of bed to kind of loosen it up from the night. And not immediately thinking, I got to get up and I got to do this. I got to make Brady his lunch. I've got to, make sure I, have meetings at this time. I got to do this, this, and this. I got to get ready to do it, right? I'm like, I'm going to lay here and check in with my body. How am I feeling as I wake up and get ready for my day? What does my body need right now? And when my alarm went off at 6 this morning, I was like, I'm going to lay here for a few minutes. I'm not immediately going to jump out of bed. I'm just going to lay here for a few minutes. And, and then after I had some meetings this morning, I had back-to-back meetings this morning. And then I had a client, but I had a 30-minute window. And I checked in with my body. I was just like, okay, what do I need right now to make this transition of being on Zoom calls to then being present with somebody who's about to come in? What do I need? And I just kind of sat here for a few breaths, checked in. I felt pretty stable. I felt pretty like centered. And then my body was just like, I want to move. I want to go for a walk. And I was like, yes, let's take the dogs and go for a walk, right? And it just happened to be perfect timing that my cute little neighbor across the street, she had just gotten home. And so we went on a walk together. And my body was so happy to be outside and moving, because that's part of why my back is hurting, is too much sitting. And so like, I didn't have to like be like, okay, now what I need to do, I should probably move my body so my back doesn't hurt. No, I paused to see what I actually needed. And then my body was like, I want to move. And so it's things like that of taking the pause. Now, I didn't have an activation this morning, right? There was no activation. There could have been, right? Like we had activation last night with my son, and I can talk about that and how we navigated through that. But I'd like you to say how your morning has gone for you first before we talk about like dealing with activation. But for me, that's what has been like practicing in the everyday is before I even have an activation, I'm checking in with my body to see where it's at. Am I feeling any stress? Am I feeling any anxiety? Am I holding any stress anywhere? What does my body need about that? Sometimes it's just presence, sometimes it's an action.
What I'm hearing you talk like you go to a doctor's office or an appointment, or you're meeting with a new therapist or coach or whatever, and you do like an intake form, right? And it's like, so it's like doing an intake of your morning before you even get into the actions of the day. And I'm like, I like this idea, like this mental thing. Cause for me, I have been waking up by alarm earlier because I'm choosing to go move my body in the morning, and that's been really fun, but this is new for me. So my alarm goes off and it's instantly like, oh, wait, you can go back to bed, right? And I was like, So my check-in happens after I finally get out of bed and I make my walk to go to the bathroom, because that's like my normal thing of like getting up, go to the bathroom, right? And then it's there that it's like, okay, you can jump, because there's a part of me that wants to instantly look at my calendar, be in that preparation, right? The mind of like, what do I have on my agenda? But I've been leaving my phone away, because that was a piece that I would like just bring it along with me, right? But so today just really like sat there, and I'm like, when I sat there, I felt this level of gratitude and this like celebration, this excitement that I was making a choice 2 days in a row to go and move my body in a way that felt really supportive for me. And so that happened. But as you were talking, a piece that really came through for me in my day today that, is not always typical, is I had to go do an errand in the middle of the day. And I drove there without any sound on, without listening to any podcasts, without listening to any music. And the whole time, like, I was talking to, spirit and angels and, kind of doing just that contemplation space. But I didn't realize I did this. And now, like, looking back, when I got into my car, I like shimmied into my spot, right? But I like paused. It was a quick second. Like, I'm not like sitting here going, okay, I'm going to scan from head to toe. I like paused and I actually felt the connection under my seat. And I even
Mm.
like, I put it into reverse. And again, this is where what I'm loving about this idea of infusing somatics in every day, that it becomes this practice. I put it in reverse and then I was like, wait a minute, no, put it back in park. And then I just sat there for 3 seconds. Like, it really wasn't a huge long time. And I was like, okay, where am I right now? And that was such like, it really was an unconscious thing. And then that whole drive actually became this space of, questions and curiosity and just, oh, recognizing the mountains and the thing. But without that chicken, I probably would have put on a podcast to feed my mind, which I love, or music to be in that. Like, my car is like my music space. But my body just wanted to just be and relax in the silence and just have the conversation. And it was part of the conversation. So that was kind of cool that I didn't realize I did today. Frozen.
You did. You froze.
Yay. We're both back though.
Are you in a freeze state?
I am in a freeze state. Yes, perfect timing. No. But I think what I was saying was that just like having that initial check-in allowed that time in the car that really I didn't want music. I didn't want podcasts. I was not feeding my mind. I was not in that space of like, just let's feed the mind. It really was a somatic experience, the somatic drive. And I was like, now looking back, I'm like, oh, more of that, please. More of that.
I think that's one of the gifts, one of the many gifts about somatics is it allows you to be in the present moment.
Mhm.
Because, our bodies might be holding tension from the past, but we only feel it in the present,
Mhm.
right? We only feel that like first initial reaction in the moment. And that's where the healing happens, is in the moment, right? And so it's like you're having this like completely present and aware moment, and that was elongated by the 3 seconds you
Mhm.
paused, right? And then it became a practice. And so I that's what I love is I feel like somatics definitely brings you into the present moment.
100% agree. And with my Gene Keys background, the Gene Keys community talks a lot about pausing. He has an app that is, pause 3 times a day, 369, all of that. And like, even like hearing that, I'm like, oh, that still is a mental, like, you create the alarms, right, to then pause. And it's beautiful because we don't find the time to pause. And the intention is that you then pause throughout the day. Like, you're not just pausing right on those alarms. But um, this idea like of what somatics does is bringing you in that present moment so you can like just be in it, be in it,
Mhm.
right? Be in the experience, be here presently. And
No matter what is happening,
right. Yeah.
right? We both have shared how our mornings have been actually really easy today,
Uh-huh.
right? But what if we are activated?
Yep.
Right? What if you get a call from the school and your daughter, something's happened to her? How are you going to be present in the moment? Or do you immediately flip into like action? I got to do this. What's going on? Like, I got to get there, right? And
Mhm.
then it's like how, even when you are having that activation, can you still be completely present with what you're experiencing as opposed to immediately the doing and the fixing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I can see, like, looking at past experiences. I mean, it's interesting because in chaos, I've always felt like I was a grounded person. Like, I always felt like I could navigate it, but I don't know that I had a language for it and I didn't have a practice behind it. And so, like, there's a part of me that like hears you with that activation, the school calls, like, how do you handle it? And I know that there has been times where you just jump into fixing and resolve, and I've got to get there and I've got to do it. how different would it feel? And you still can get to that resolve and still get to the school and do what needs to be done, but you're able to take 2 to 3 seconds of just pausing and being that present so that when you show up, you're not in a heightened state of activation. You're still going to be activated, right? Especially the situation, it may take time for the body to calm down from it, but you're not picking your child up in that state or, you know, allowing him.
Right. And then, like my question really is for those that are um, grounded in moments of chaos, like, are you truly grounded or have you disconnected from the situation so that you can
You'll,
survive through the situation?
yeah.
And then later it shows up in the body of like once you're out of the situation, then it can be present in your body and then you're feeling all of the, things. And so it can be one of those, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, I can totally, that totally speaks to me because I definitely was a disassociator and not knowing that's what I was doing. And so, even like sitting with what I just said, that I've always felt grounded, was I grounded because I could separate myself from it. And I'm totally like, ooh, that one's hitting right. Okay, here's everyday somatics, right? It's hitting right here in the solar plexus, right above my belly button. Like, ooh, maybe you haven't been as present, right? Mine's been very present because I can be super present if I'm not feeling what's going on. Yeah. Good
And
call.
that, and but see, and that, like, that's not something we should shame, because
Right.
that is our survival mechanism. That is what our body will automatically do in order to get us to survive. Like,
Yeah.
so no matter the situation, it's like, this is your tactic, this is the way that you're going to deal with this, and that is a gift in and of itself. But we also get to train our bodies to do it a new way so that we don't hold on to it for longer than necessary
Yep. Yeah.
or have it end up in disease.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you
So,
want to share? You were talking about an activation, something that happened the other day. Because again, like, really the intention of these conversations, and for those of you that are listening and that want to infuse somatics in, which is life-changing. It's life-changing to bring your body into the conversation. I wrote notes here before where the goal is to listen to your body before the point of thinking about it. And that hit me really when I was typing those notes out when we were talking earlier, because I'm like, my my intention is that I'm actually listening to my body before I actually have to think about it. And those pauses become, so, okay, I'm in a new space. Where am I at? Where am I? I love that, like, that question, just where am I? And just orienting myself to this place, because that again is just that practice of being super present. And for me, when I can get to this space where I'm listening to my body before my mind has to think about it, that part, like, I had an incident a couple of weeks ago where I was like, this does not feel good. This conversation doesn't feel good. And I continued into the conversation. So then I'm like engaging from an activated state. And we've now since had a conversation around it with this person, and they were in an activated space. So we're both like, literally, it's like that static of just, but my body the whole time, like, it actually started in phases. Like, it was like, oh, felt this in my heart, some constriction, some this. And then my eyes started going a little bit blurry, and like all, like, so it was like, Stefanie, we're here. You're not listening. Why aren't you listening? Stop, pause. And I'm like, so if my intention is to get to the place where I can listen to my body before I'm thinking about it, I simply, when I feel that activation, I'm pausing and just being super present, not jumping to fixing, okay, you're hurting. So what, wait, I need to fix you and then I can go finish this conversation. No, I'm actually going to be with you right now without having to think about it.
yeah.
That's
And
feels
it's like a tricky balance of, because our minds, and we go to this a lot of like, our minds try to tell us what we're feeling,
Mhm.
right? But we have to take that pause of like, and of like, oh, what am I feeling? But see, you even are asking yourself, like, because when I feel activated, I'm like, oh, okay, what am I feeling? right? But it's not a question of the mind. It's a question of the mind that connects me back to my body.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what am I feeling? And my mind's not trying to figure that out. My body starts to tell me, oh,
Mhm.
I'm feeling constriction. I'm feeling tightness. I'm feeling butterflies. I'm feeling sick. I'm feeling heavy. I'm feeling spinny, whatever that is, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, because we don't want to bypass the mind. We get to use it,
Yes.
but but use it in a way that is not giving us the answers. It's coming back to the body. So it's again that reprogramming to not fix and solve, but to come back here and have the inquiry, have the curiosity, not necessarily searching for an answer, but the curiosity of what it is that you're feeling.
Yeah. It's bringing the body into the conversation. And for
Yeah.
me, the body is like my governing light because of that disassociating piece that I've always or in the past dealt with. And I didn't listen to my body when it was trying to tell me that something's not right here, right? And so for me, like bringing the body into the conversation and ultimately like she kind of leads the way, right? But it's not a standalone experience for me. It is okay, like the inquiry, right? Bringing that in and then bringing the spiritual components of it and all of that. But the body, oh my gosh, like oh, I know I'm probably just like belaboring the point, but the body from like in the moment speaks in the moment, right? The
Mhm.
activation happens in that moment. It's not
Mhm.
hours later. It is in that. And then it can dissipate or it can shift or we can bypass it and then it comes back up later, but it does happen in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll say our activation last night. We were bleaching my son's hair, and he wanted it a specific color, right? He didn't want it brassy. He didn't want the orange or even the yellow. He like wants it like bright white, right? He wants the platinum. And so we go and we get all the stuff, and we sit here and we do the bleach, and he gets out of the shower and it's not the color that he wants. He's so upset, right? And it's like 10 o'clock at this point. I'm like, I'm not going to go to bed until he's out and I know he's okay, like, mother. So I'm laying on the couch with the dogs, and he comes out and he's just mad as all get out. He's like, this is not what I want it to look like. And I don't want to go to school like this tomorrow. And my natural fawning would have been like, oh my gosh, let's run to Walmart and we'll just get a bleach kit and we'll just keep doing it and it doesn't matter. And like, and I just sat there and I was just like, I'm so sorry. This is not the color that you wanted it to be. Like I can feel that you're like so like upset about it,
Mhm.
right? And then I did not go into meeting his activation, which in that did not up his activation.
Mm.
Right? I was able to feel his activation and feel my inclination to fawn and want to fix the problem. And I was just like, oh, okay. And it's funny because when you start to do this, and when there's like another person involved, you take the pause and you watch them react, right? You watch them like activate, and I just sat there and I just watched him, and I was like,
Mm.
okay. And I allowed myself to feel all of the things that were coming in, his emotions, his frustration, my wanting to fix, my being tired. Like I was like done with my day at that point. And I was just like, I, I need to take a second because I really want to be mindful about how I respond, not react,
Mm.
respond. And
Mm.
I can only come from a response if I'm aware of what my body is saying. My body is telling me that I'm tired. My body is saying, you want to fix this, but there's nothing you can do right now. And so we're just going to be with the situation, acknowledge his feelings, acknowledge the fact that he's frustrated, and then see what happens. And then, he got to be upset about it. And then he went to go to bed, and he was just like, "Mom, can I sleep in tomorrow?" And I was like, "Sure, if you need to, if you can miss your first class, that's okay." Right? And he was just like, "I just need some sleep."
Mm.
So you could tell that his activation was not just about the hair. His activation was because he's also tired, right? But if I had met his activation about the hair, it would have been a huge thing. And it would have been like, "I'm not going to school because I hate my hair," and all of this stuff, when really it probably comes down to that he needed sleep.
Mm.
And so, and he's upset about this. So it's in that taking that pause and allowing someone else to be triggered, or allowing the activation to happen, and you taking that moment to feel what it feels like for that activation to be happening within yourself, and then taking a moment to decide how you want to respond to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can even be talking about it. Like, "Ooh, man, like your reaction right now is really triggering me. Your reaction right now is making me feel upset or defensive or tight or rigid," or you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So I think just being aware helps the situation immensely.
Couple things came through, like when you're sitting with your body, when somebody else is in an activated state, and you actually check in and you're not activated by the outcome, right? Like you're activated by, like what's going on inside of you, the lack of sleep, or that you're feeling bad. Like this is hard, like mama heart hurts, right? Seeing them upset, but really you weren't activated is what I'm
Right.
hearing. And how quickly we jump to that, to meet that activation, to partly, I think we do it in a way to make them, it's uncomfortable to be in that activated state, right? So we're going to try and make them feel like they're seen, heard. But how beautiful that you did that from an embodied state where he's like, you don't have to fix his activation. You can't actually fix it. That
Right.
came through. And then the second thing that was really cool to just listen to the story, and this is everyday somatics, like these are the stories, like, but the second thing that came through was, oh shoot, slipped my mind. It was, oh, his activation was a combination of things. And if you would have
Yeah.
just addressed the one thing, oh, the hair did not turn out like you wanted it, you could have missed really the underlying piece of it. And ultimately, I mean, it sounds like this morning, after his rest, he was able
Yeah.
to go, and it was fine. But you got to the underlying root of it,
Yeah.
because like that's really cool. That was cool to witness it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? I think that that feels really good for me.
Okay.
I think, see, I even just said it. I think that feels really good for me. Hold on. That feels really good in my body. I feel complete.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, our minds play a big role, and they're used to being in charge. Our brains are used to being in charge. And
Yeah.
it's a reprogramming of, not necessarily to have our bodies in charge, but to have our bodies be part of the conversation, because they have messages to share.
Mm. Yes.
So, okay.
Wraps it up.
Yes. Thanks everybody for listening. And
Yes.
always, if you want to participate, let us know, reach out. You can write down in the comments if there's like a situation that you would like us to walk through, or if you'd like to join us and be part of the conversation. We're happy to do that, and um, we're excited to share more.
Yeah. All right. Till next time. We'll see you later.